Hey, I'm Sterling. This is Learning American English with Sterling, and I'm Sterling. So you're learning American English with me. If you're here, and if you're watching this, you're here. This is one of those new idea topics. One of the topics in Spanish grammar that took a really long time for me to understand is the concept of passive voice in Spanish. That's when you use se and any verb in the third person. Like in present tense, se dice que, it said that. And for some reason, I wasn't even thinking about that being passive voice. But it is, and it's the same passive voice we learn in English. There's a connection that could feel really familiar to a Spanish speaker who's trying to learn a little about English passive voice, the same connection that I felt, because Spanish also uses passive voice. So let's compare a little bit with examples. In English, first, this is just a random sentence. This sentence has no object because it uses the verb say, and the verb say doesn't have to have an object. They say that people are hungry in Africa. That's active voice. It is said that people are hungry in Africa. That's passive voice. In the active sentence, they is a subject. It's very clear who says. They say that people are hungry in Africa. In the passive form, it is a subject, and it's unclear. It's unclear who or what it is. And then we use the verb to be with the past participle of the verb, and it comes out. It is said. So maybe we want to add some information to that, like in the active one, who is they? Who does they define? You can do that. So let's do that. People with a knowledge of world economics say that people are hungry in Africa. So they are the people with knowledge of world economics. This specifies the person or the thing that's doing the action of the verb. In this case, it's saying. It replaces the pronoun with something specific. And that's what pronouns do. They replace specific things with a single word. In the passive form of the same sentence, the passive form, we can also specify who or what's doing the action of saying. And we do that by adding the preposition by along with the same information. And it comes out like this in the passive version. It is said by people with knowledge of world economics that people are hungry in Africa. Okay, so what if the sentence has an object? Because some verbs have to have an object. Like the first one I'm going to give you here, fix, it has to have an object. Or some verbs can take an object or they don't have an object. But if you're going to have an object in the sentence, let's see how this comes out between active form and passive form. My mechanic is going to fix the car. That's active. My mechanic is the subject. The car is the object. Now let's say this in passive form. The car is going to get fixed by my mechanic. Now the car is the subject, and the mechanic is the object. We switched them. Let's take another one. The broadcast was made at the end of the day by my brother. The subject is the broadcast. The object is the brother. He comes after by. Now let's make it active. My brother made the broadcast at the end of the day. Now my brother becomes the subject. The broadcast becomes the object. Here's another example. The seat on the bus was given up by the kind gentleman. Well, the seat is the subject. The kind gentleman is the object, and it follows the word by. So we know it's the object. Let's make it excuse me. Let's make it active. The kind gentleman becomes the subject. The kind gentleman gave up the seat on the bus. The seat is the object. The kind gentleman is the subject. You get the trend. Now, what if the information in the passive version that follows the word by is missing? Like, what if the object is missing in the passive version? If the object is missing in the passive version, you'll have to substitute some kind of pronoun or pronoun expression for it when you say it in the active way, because the active version needs a subject. So you have to insert something to represent that. You'll have to add it, they, someone, something. That's most clear by examples. For instance, let's start. I'm going to start each one of these with a passive version. The car is going to get fixed. By whom? Someone is going to fix the car. I had to insert someone to make an active version because there's no object specified in the passive version. Someone made the broadcast at the end of the day. Well, in that case, that's the active version. In the passive version, I'll leave out the someone because someone is nebulous. I'm doing this one backwards. The broadcast was made at the end of the day. By whom? By someone. I might have confused that by starting out with the active one. I'm going to continue by starting out with the passive one. The seat on the bus was given up. By whom? Someone gave up the seat on the bus. I had to insert someone to say this in an active form because the object was not specified in the passive version. When I was young, someone expected me to do everything. That's the active version. I've reversed it again. Maybe it'll be less confusing this time. Someone expected me to do everything. The passive version of that, the active version of that, no. Excuse me. When I was young, someone expected me to do everything. That's active. Someone is expecting. The passive version is, it was expected of me to do everything when I was young. By whom? By someone. So I insert the someone in the active version. When I was young, someone expected me to do everything. But the point I'm making is if you don't have an object specified in the passive version, you're going to have to create a pronoun to put into the active version. One more. Something was done about it before it was too late. Something was done by whom? On the active version, I'm going to say they. They did something about it before it was too late. That's active. Okay, so how does all this relate to the way you use passive voice in Spanish? It relates very directly, except in Spanish, the form changes depending on present or past. And in English, it changes, but we still use a form of to be. One way of expressing passive voice in Spanish is exactly like in English. And that's the use of to be plus a past participle. And my observation is that this is used in past tense in Spanish. The second option is to use se in third person. And my observation is this is used in present tense. That's all grammatical talk. It doesn't make any sense until we show it with some real examples. So let's talk about direct active sentences in Spanish. La gente que sabe dice que hay hambre en África. That's direct present tense. Direct present tense with a little less information. Dicen que hay hambre en África. Let's put it in past tense. La gente que sabe dijeron que hay hambre en África. And let's say that in past tense with a little less information. Dijeron que hay hambre en África. Well, let's take that same sentence and make it passive. Passive present tense. Se dice por la gente que sabe que hay hambre en África. Say that with a little less information. Se dice que hay hambre en África. Now let's put it in past tense, and in Spanish the form changes. We don't use se anymore. We use a form that sounds like what we do in English. Fue dicho por la gente que sabe que hay hambre en África. Let's take a little bit of information out of that, and we just say, fue dicho que hay hambre en África. We use the same form as we do in English. To be, in the past participle, fue dicho. But in the present tense of Spanish, we use se and the third person, which we don't use in English. But you see, there's these connections. I'm not teaching Spanish here. I'm just showing you their connections and similarities. In fact, I probably have some Spanish-speaking students who might be able to correct some things I might say incorrectly about Spanish grammar. But what I'm doing here is showing you that there are connections between how you use active and passive voice in both Spanish and English. And what I'm saying is that if you understand how to use active and passive voice correctly in your own native language first, Spanish, I assume, this ability is going to enable you to understand how to do it in English. And what we're learning in grammar when we learn a new language is quite often very similar to what you already know and what you already do in your own language. So you might as well take advantage of what you already know, because what you already know is always a great stepping stone. It's a great connecting path to learning anything that you can connect with it, because you already know it. So it gives you a learning shortcut. So if you're confused about what active and passive voice mean in general, whether you're talking about English or Spanish, taking the time to understand what they mean in your own native language first, this is going to help you erase that confusion, and it's going to help you remember how to do it correctly in English. So if you're ready to put this into practice in English, let's go. In the following dialogue, listen for the differences between active and passive voice, and listen for other things you know about English grammar structure that might help you. And what else do I want to say about that? I'm just telling this in normal, everyday talk. You're going to have to listen closely to pick out the active, the passive, whatever other grammar forms you might be able to pick out. So let's do that. I'll see you in the next segment. Just 1 minute. Okay. Oh yeah. Next video. Okay.